Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about this upcoming tornado season and how it compares to some other ones. Now, before I get started with this video, though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Now, I would also highly recommend that you check out our very exciting Patreon page in the description and in the pinned comments down below, and then also our very awesome channel membership, which you can check out next to that subscribe button. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think we will have an above average tornado season this year or a below average tornado season? Let me know in the comments down below, give me a reason why, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look at our El Nino influence and our La Nina influence. We talked a lot about this in our severe weather videos that we uploaded as well. But there's a very strong correlation between El Ninos and below average tornadoes, and then La Ninas and above average tornadoes. So that's at the top of the screen. You can see the yellow and orange areas experience below average tornadoes in El Ninos, but then those blues on the right there, the upper right hand corner, you can see experience above average tornadoes. So Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana especially, but also some surrounding states. And then the bottom is going to be for your hailstorms. So we're mostly talking about tornadoes here, but hailstorms would be associated with some tornadic storms as well in those supercells. So that's relevant as well. Now, in a minute, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about if we're going to experience a La Nina or an El Nino this tornado season. So let's talk about some previous years real quick. This is 2011. We all know this is the big one, basically, of tornadoes. And we had a La Nina that year. So as you can see, that black line is actually our amount of tornadoes. So we had 1,612 tornadoes that year. The absolute maximum through December 31st was 1,884. So, I mean, you're very close to just the maximum there. And then in those yellows, that's where we have our 75th percentile, 50th percentile in the green, and then our 25th percentile in the blue. So usually they fall between the yellow and the blue on average. And then that red and the pink are the absolute minimum and maximum there. So you can see we're very close to the absolute maximum there for the 2011 year in a La Nina. In our 2020 tornado season, which was an El Nino or a neutral ENSO at least, but it definitely more on that El Nino side, you can see we were very close to that pink line. Now, there was a time frame in April where it looked like we were going to have a very big tornado season, and you might remember that even earlier on in January, February, we were above the average. But what ended up happening is we had a very slow May, very slow June, very slow July, and over the summer it just got kind of slower and slower. So even though we got kind of that early start, it didn't really pan out later on, which is really good news that it really slowed down in a hurry. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the forecasted temperatures for our springtime, including the sea surface temperatures. We will take a look at if we're expected to be in an El Nino or a La Nina, and we'll even take a look at my official spring forecast that I released I think about a week ago. We'll be taking a reviewed look at that as well in just a moment. All right, so here we are taking a look at those temperatures. Now, this is your air temperature. And for the springtime, this is our Jamstack model, and it's kind of expecting us to be more in a warmer spring overall for most of the United States, with some cold there for the very northern plains and in the northwest. I think this is a little extreme based on what I've been seeing. It looks like kind of the north central United States will be cold as well. Again, you will be able to see my official forecast here coming up soon, but that's just what I've been looking at. Here's our precipitation forecast, and it has the Ohio Valley in the northeast, as well as the mid-Atlantic and above average precipitation, and then the south central kind of in that below average precipitation. Again, I think that might be a little bit overdone there. And then here is our sea surface temperatures, and you can see plenty of blues there offshore of Central America and South America in the Pacific Ocean. That is our La Nina there. So we are expected to remain a La Nina throughout the spring months, which is March, April, May in meteorology. Now, here's our Nino 3.4 index forecast according to our Jamstack model, and this is basically just a graph which tells us are we going to be in a La Nina or an El Nino. Below that zero line there in the middle is La Nina. Above that is an El Nino. So you can see we've been in a pretty moderate La Nina, and we're moving towards an El Nino. You need to remember that there's going to be a lag of about a month or so of these changes. So if we move over into an El Nino, it's probably going to take about a month for those effects to be felt, and we'll probably remain in a La Nina pattern. So as we're moving towards March, it appears we will still be a La Nina. April is when we might cross over into that neutral zone, and then by the time we're reaching May, we might be feeling a bit of a more neutral or El Nino type impact there. And then over the summer, it appears it'll be a little bit more like an El Nino, which is very interesting, but somewhat neutral. And so for the most part is mostly what's expected anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at the CFS forecast for those temperatures, precipitation, and things like that. Because that model, we can take it month by month. So we're going to take a look at that in just a moment, and then my official spring forecast. All of that is coming up. All right, so here is the March 2021 forecast, and as you can see, warmer temperatures in the east, colder in the west, but kind of a cold up there for the Rockies and the northern plains a little bit, and then warmer as you head further south. That's going to allow for some cold fronts to come through into the warmer temperatures, and that really indicates some severe weather events are coming up. In my opinion, that's typically what I would be thinking at this point. My March forecast, my official March forecast, will be coming out in a few days, so be on the lookout for that, as I'll be able to give you guys my official thoughts on what I think is going to happen. That's coming up very shortly. Obviously, we only have a couple more days of February here to work with. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at those precipitation anomalies there for the month of March. And as you can see, there's going to be generally some above average precipitation around, especially for the plains there and then the Gulf states. So that's usually the areas where you're taking a look at some tornadic activity. This is just going to help that severe weather. With that cold air coming through into the warm, obviously going to create some severe weather events, but also this precipitation is indicating this model also thinks there will be some general storminess. Now, as we move into April, things get a little bit worse even because those yellows and oranges being set up over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then even our Dixie Alley there. With the blues to the north, those blues are indicating some pretty frequent cold fronts coming through, and they probably will extend down into the yellows and oranges sometimes. That's what's going to cause tornado outbreaks and severe weather events for the month of April. And as you can see on that precipitation anomaly, once again, above average precipitation for basically all of our Dixie Alley and our traditional Tornado Alley as well, indicating some above average storminess in general for these areas, which is a bad sign at this point. By the time we reach May, you can see it becomes colder overall. This take this with a grain of salt because this is getting a little bit further out. Usually these seasonal models are a lot better with month 1, and they're a little bit better with month 2, but then once you get to month 3, you're going to need to start taking it with a grain of salt for sure there. But that month 1 is very accurate on these seasonal models typically. So let's take a look at the May precipitation. And as you can see, for the more northern areas like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, we do have a lot of above average precipitation. But then for that Dixie Alley, it's below average. Usually the tornado season, as it progresses towards May, moves further and further north. And that could be just what's happening here by this point. So what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the 3-month forecast according to this model, and then we're going to take a look at my official spring forecast in just a moment. So here we are taking a look at the temperature forecast for March, April, May time frame, which is our meteorological spring. It starts on March 1st and it ends on the final day of May. So that is our meteorological spring season, and it makes more sense. It lines up more with when we start to see those transitions. So that's typically what weather people go by. And that's typically what the weather is going to go by as well. More typically, we will start to see March 1st being the transition towards warmer times ahead. So we see those colder temperatures to the north and the warmer temperatures to the south. This is classic tornado setup here. Overall for an above average tornado season. It's a classic La Nina pattern as well, and I think this has a lot to do with why La Ninas typically cause more tornadoes, is because they typically have a pattern like this, which is very good for tornado activity. The above average precipitation here that you can see for the entire season is also concerning, as it basically encompasses all the areas that expect to see a good chance at tornadoes during the spring season, so that's not good news at all. Here's my official spring forecast, starting out with the precipitation forecast. So you might have seen my spring forecast, in which case you can always skip this, of course, but some people probably haven't, so I'm going to go ahead and share this again. That's typically how I go. I'll be showing this throughout the spring months, and then, the summer one throughout the summer, etc. So for the southwest there, we can see that we do have some below average precipitation. That isn't going to impact the tornado season a lot because this isn't a very, tornadic area. Sometimes we get some of that activity for regions of that, Texas and New Mexico, especially there, I guess, out of all these regions. But outside of that, this is not a very typical tornado region. But we do have above average precipitation for our Tornado Alley, so Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. I'm skeptical if we will have above average precipitation for the Dixie Alley or southern Texas. I think we could for sure, but especially those northern areas, I expect more precipitation. For our temperature forecast, above average temperatures to the south, below average temperatures to the north. This was pretty clear on what we just saw from the models that this would be the case. I extend it further east than that Jamstack model. I side a little more with that CFS model. I think this is a little bit more like a classic La Nina pattern, and everything I'm seeing is pointing more towards a pattern like this, which would create a lot of tornadic activity and severe weather activity in general in the middle of the two air masses. We know this. We learned about this in school. In between the cold and the warm, where those two air masses interact is where you will see that bad activity. So let's add that severe weather forecast. I didn't make a tornado forecast for my spring forecast, but I can show you my severe weather forecast, which does correlate, obviously. In the yellows, I do expect a general chance at above average severe weather, but that red area is especially where I'm just eyeballing for the best chance at severe weather development and tornado development throughout the spring months, the most above average region for Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, northern Arkansas there, and then in through Illinois and portions of Indiana as well. Anyways, for our confidence tab, we're at a 4 out of 6. As you can see, this is a seasonal forecast, so we're going to be generally lower on that confidence tab. I would never put a seasonal forecast at a 5 or a 6 unless it was maybe a 1-month outlook and it just was looking overwhelmingly like that was going to happen. But this is generally as high as I could possibly go with something like this. So yeah, I do feel like there's a strong correlation between the La Nina and above average tornadoes. So I am confident there will be above average tornadoes at this point. Above 50% chance, at about a 60% chance, I think. There's a pretty good chance considering it's a 3-month period. That's a pretty high confidence. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, do you think there will be any slight risk days coming up? Because we do have some severe weather events happening over the course of the next weekend and the next week. And Ducky said, there's definitely going to be at least one slight day, maybe enhanced on Sunday or Thursday. And I definitely agree. I'm skeptical if there will be the enhanced risk, but I definitely think there will be 1 or 2 slight risk days for sure within that event. Anyway, for our patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons: Sebastian Tao, John Ben Bennick, James Wade, Dovi Nagel, Alan Palemo, Adam S., Larry LePan, Donna Carnes, Cameron Marshall, and Aiden Mattis, alongside our diamond patrons: Bill Roberts, Alan Sherry, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Codalessa, Michael Buell, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Kellen Manhart, It's Jay, Cindy Klein, Mark J, Luke Valego, Gary's, and John Quilisi. If you would like to be a part of this Patron end screen of the day, you can do so by joining our very exciting Patreon page in the description and in the pinned comments down below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.